Hey everybody! Hope you're all enjoying the beautiful fall weather. We've been having some glorious fall days up here. Kind of cool at night, but then warm during the day, so really been enjoying that. We've even done some pumpkin carving, and we made like a jack-o'-lantern with our boys, and we have some songs that we sing about, like the jack-o'-lanterns. Not Halloween, because I just have an incredible distaste for Halloween. Sorry, Halloween lovers, so just can't do it. Anyway, so today, I was just remembering a couple weeks ago, I did a video with some thoughts on starting a Bruderhof in like a different faith tradition, like Catholic or Anglican or whatever. And I don't know if it's COVID or what, but there seems to be a lot of talk about community. People are wishing for it and wondering how to make it happen. So for this video today, I thought I'd do a little follow-up with the main reason being to encourage any of you who might be thinking kind of along these lines of community or whatever. Of course, there's a really big difference between thinking about something and then actually doing it. I'm sure most people are familiar with the parable about the builder who did not count the cost of the house before he started the building. He built his house on the sand, and the rains came down and the floods came up and his building collapsed. So there's actually even a little song that we sing, but I'll spare you that rendition because I actually don't really know it very well. So yes, it is important to think through ideas, especially when it involves many people. But that said, life in community is a step in faith. At my conversion, I was clear about one thing. I was going to follow Jesus. Like that's the one thing I was very clear in my mind. And I don't remember looking very far down the road and worrying about how it would all play out in all the twists and turns of life. I just remember having a lot of joy and enthusiasm for setting out on this path. I think living in community is a bit like that, and any steps, like even the small ones that are in the direction of sharing and looking after others, are really important ones. The intentional communities I know of, they're all different, but an overarching thread between us all is the wish or the longing to share our lives with others. Okay, so the big problem is always money. And this one takes a lot of trust, especially for families with young children, or if someone has a medical condition that requires expensive treatment. But one of the things that Jesus is clearest about is the spirit of mammon, or possessiveness, and how it's contrary to his kingdom. And as is well known in the very first church in Jerusalem, people who were cut to the heart, as it says, they spontaneously shared all their possessions. Again, this is where a life commitment can make it possible for someone to say, we're in this together through good and bad, and we'll support each other as the need arises. So I think a common purse is pretty key and goes along with what, for us at least, is a cornerstone, and that is the vow of poverty. That said, sharing all things in common is a very radical, countercultural thing that requires a lot of courage and faith. And sometimes the decision to share all things happens quickly, like at Pentecost, when suddenly having private property, it must have felt obviously false. But at other times, and I think this can be an encouragement to anyone who wants to take a step in the direction of community, it can be a simple sacrifice like carpooling or inviting someone over for a meal or taking care of someone's kids spontaneously. So those are a couple thoughts. Here's another thought. One thing we often remind ourselves of when there's a question of how or whether to do something is, if it's good for the children, then it's good for everybody, which reminds us how Jesus told his disciples to become like children. And from the beginning of the Bruderhof, it was very important that we are an educational community, trying to raise children who will want to serve their fellow man, and also teaching them about all the wonders of the world God has created and is working in history through various people. So for someone wanting to start a community, it would be really important to think about how children and young people will be cared for. And another thing, a really important thing that I still have to work on daily is to not so easily take offense at other people's annoying habits, which I probably talked about on my other videos before. But basically, as we know, everyone is imperfect, and if you live and work with people every day, those imperfections can really start to grate on you. I'm sure mine grate on other people. So anyway, it's really important to not talk about the things that annoy you with other people, like to talk behind their backs. Eberhard Arnold, who was the founder of the Bruderhof, or who founded the Bruderhof, he actually didn't ever want to be called the founder. Anyway, he was known to say that it ruins your character to be concerned with the weaknesses and imperfections of other people because it chains your mind to trivial thoughts. So he said the solution was to talk about greater and more important things. So, mental note, good reminder for me. Okay, and then the last point that I wanted to, the last kind of thought I have to share was something that might be pretty obvious to some, but having a sense of humor about yourself really makes it a lot easier and more enjoyable to live in community. And I can think of more than one occasion when things like within our communities got kind of tense. Maybe there was like a disagreement of how something should be done, or some people were at odds with each other, and someone had the wherewithal to like crack a joke, and everybody of course laughed, and then everything doesn't seem so bad anymore. I guess that's what some people would call a tempest in a teapot. Anyway, I could probably think of some examples, but they slipped my mind right now. Anyway, I hope you're all encouraged by this video, and I'll see you all next week.